Welcome to Leaders' Questions.
Taoiseach, there are many things I'd like to engage with you today, but the ongoing genocide is uppermost in my mind and our colleagues' mind, and more importantly, in the thousands of emails that we're getting imploring us to do something in addition to our sweet words. Total disregard of international law by Netanyahu, by the Israel government and by the army. A body of international law which has developed to ensure that the very slaughter we're witnessing would never happen again. And yet we are seeing scenes of horror and destruction in Palestine. They were described by the UN rapporteur this morning. They were described by an Irish doctor yesterday. In the last 3 days, we have seen the end of the ceasefire unilaterally by Israel and an invasion by air and by land. Bombs dropping on defenceless civilians. We don't know the figure, ranging up to 1,000, 70% women and children. But of course, we've been told by the UN rapporteur that that is the ratio since the day that Israel started their genocide. And this despite Israel being under a legal obligation to dismantle the occupation by the end of this year, by the highest court in the world. And what we were seeing, not that, but an escalation of the violence and the genocide. And we're openly informed they are back to finish the job. They are back to ensure that no Palestinians will be left on Palestinian land. And the people that are there are surviving amongst dead bodies of their families and their people. No water, no energy, no hospitals, and being starved to death. And we talk. And what is Ireland doing? Along with our sweet words, we are actively colluding with genocide. We are actively colluding with the slaughter of innocent people. I know it's difficult for you to hear this, Taoiseach, and please don't waste your reply, if you could, in telling me how grateful the Palestinian people are to us. I know you're going to tell me that. I've been told it repeatedly. And of course they're grateful, and of course we should be proud and that we recognise Palestine. But that's the bare minimum we should be doing faced with a genocide. And what we could do is end the military use of SHANNON. At the very least, use the legislative powers that are there to stop the transit of arms being reported on a regular basis by the ditch. And the last government, Eamon Ryan, told us there was going to be an inspection regime. I understand that's gone by the way. The Occupied Territories Bill that the leader of the Labour Party has welcomed, I also welcome it, but I don't trust you. I absolutely do not trust you in relation to the Occupied Territories. You could stop the trade agreement that Europe has with Israel. You could end the central bank issuing war bonds. And you might explain the American Jewish Committee that the Taoiseach met in America in relation to the next steps of agreement. Please clarify that.
Taoiseach.
I'm so sick and tired of you misrepresenting my position and demeaning all that we do as sweet words. And I'd really love, I'm not sure I would actually, but I'd really love if sometime you were in Brussels with me at some of these meetings where we're working extraordinarily hard on these issues, and where if you ask any other member state, or indeed the Israeli government, do they feel that Ireland isn't taking action to support the people of Palestine? So I'm not going to say, you asked me not to talk about what we've done in terms of recognition, so I'm not. I'm going to tell you 5 things we are doing. Firstly, we're actively involved in the ICJ case. We took a decision, that used to be your demand, we took that decision, and we took that decision as one of only a very small number of countries to actually intervene in a case in the International Court. And at a time when international courts are coming under attack from others, we're proudly standing with the international courts and speaking up for international law. That's something I'm proud of doing. That's an action. That's not sweet words. So I presume you recognise the importance of international courts. That's a practical measure. Second thing we're doing is providing very significant humanitarian aid. My colleague, Minister Neil Richmond, who has responsibility for this, we have today trucks in Jordan with enough aid for 6,000 people in Gaza. Practical measures taken by your constituents and mine to fund and pay for aid. We need to get that aid into Gaza, but it's a practical measure. It's not sweet words, don't be so flippant. The third thing we're doing is supporting UNRWA. Again, talk to the Director General of UNRWA. Ask him how supportive this government has been. Not only have we provided €38 million at a time when others have walked away, walked off the pitch from UNRWA, we've provided €38 million on behalf of the people of this country, and I've announced in my role as Taoiseach a further €20 million in support for UNRWA to keep UNRWA working in Gaza, in the Middle East. A very practical measure, not sweet words or the flippant point you make. The next thing we've done is worked with Arab countries. I've met the Minister in Jordan, the Minister in Egypt, the Palestinian Prime Minister, all in recent weeks in Munich and in Johannesburg. I've met these people. And we're supporting the Arab plan for reconstruction, saying to people, including the United States, we see your plan in relation to the displacement of people from Palestine as utterly unacceptable and in breach of international law. We want an alternative plan for Gaza that sees no role for Hamas, I'm sure you'd agree with that, no role for Hamas, a brutal illegal terrorist organisation, but does see the reconstruction of Gaza and a new governance and security arrangement in place. That's the fourth thing we're doing. And the fifth practical thing we're doing is we're engaging in relation to advancing the commitment in the programme for government in terms of legislating in relation to the occupied territories. 5 practical measures that doesn't include the recognition of the State of Palestine that we are taking to help people. Not sweet words, real action. But you know what? Diplomacy is tough. It takes real action. In fact, if anyone's talking sweet words, that's only you.
Deputy Connolly.
You know, I prefer to stay in silence at the failure of you to respond. And in recognition of the genocide that's taking place in our name, the word you're not using, genocide in our name. You have refused to condemn the genocide. You have refused to condemn Trump and the American government for fully backing genocide. We have called out Russia for its illegal invasion. We have supported you on that, and you utterly failed to call out what Israel is doing. They're ignoring all international law. They are committing genocide in our name, while you talk about silly words across in our name. Stop using... Thank you, Lescan Corley. Stop using Shannon to carry destructive weapons. Enact the Occupied Territories Bill immediately. Stop trade with Europe. End the dual export of products. You know, the interruptions by all of you is a measure of your absolute absence of realisation of what's happening on the ground, and that you need to join in with a Taoiseach that's utterly failing to answer the questions. And can you please go back to the committee that the Taoiseach met in America when he was over there?
Deputy Connolly, I'll ask you
Commitments
to conclude,
were given.
please.
It's reported in the paper that agreement
Deputy
was
Connolly,
made in relation.
please
I was interrupted.
And I've allowed you over time. Taoiseach to respond.
What was agreed and what commitments were made?
But the Taoiseach is entirely correct to meet representatives of the Jewish community, as do I. Anti-Semitism is disgusting. Anti-Semitism is despicable. There are hostages who've been taken from the people of Israel, from families, and they need to be freed. And the carry-on of Hamas is utterly despicable. Parading children's caskets like some sort of sick, twisted act of propaganda. Hamas need to be condemned, and we here in this government will always engage proudly with the Jewish community at home and abroad. But we'll also speak the truth. We stand up for international law. We utterly condemn the actions of the Netanyahu government. Utterly. We condemn it. And we want to talk about genocide. Read our submission in relation to the ICJ. It must be exhausting to think you and you alone carry responsibility and care for this. We care passionately, and we're actually acting, and I'm proud of the actions of the Irish government in relation to this, and so are many people right across the country, and so is the government of Palestine.
Like, share, and subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.